Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Eugene Public Library Reads installment. We've had so much fun over the past few months giving you some of our favorite reads of the year, our spookiest stories, our tastiest delights, and now we bring you our holiday gift reads. Whether you are getting gifts for Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Christmas, even if you don't celebrate, even if you're a Scrooge and you don't even give your friends birthday presents, these reads can be just as good for you as anybody you're not getting a gift for. So today we're going to talk about all of our favorite books. We're going to start with the littles and we're going to work our way all the way up to us older folk who enjoy a good read. So I'm going to kick it over to my friend, Rachel. Rachel, hi, how's it going? Rachel, I hear that maybe you have some fabulous reads for little people, our tiniest tots that we love so much, the kids of all. I can't wait to hear it. What do you got?
Yes, I am so excited about these reads. Let's start off with my very favorite of the year. This is Vamos, Let's Go Eat. This is by Raul III with colors by Elaine Bay. And check out those colors and those illustrations. They are beautiful. This is a bilingual book. It's in English and in Spanish, which is muy bien. I love it. And check it out. This book celebrates food vendors of all kinds that are along the Mexican-American border. And from food trucks to food carts, Raul III and Elaine Bay really have a lot of respect and love, you can tell, for those food vendors. And they share a lot of words in English and Spanish. And it's a fun story about little Lobo and his friend Cookie Dookie and Bernadette, his dog, and all the adventures they have helping out the Lucha Libre members as they get their food and get ready for their Lucha Libre, their fight for the evening. So this is a wonderful book to share with anyone. I love it. Raul III is a Porta Belprix Award winner for lowriders to the center of the earth, and I think you'll enjoy Vamos. So Vamos, let's go get it. My second book for the evening, this picture book is called While We Can't Hug. This is by Owen McLaughlin and Polly Dunbar. And it's just a really beautiful book for right now when a lot of us want to be able to hug those people we love, but we're not able to. This book talks about tortoise and hedgehog. They're friends who can't touch right now, but they can find lots of ways to show they love and care for each other. I'll show you one. Let's see. Hedgehog blew a kiss across the gap, and tortoise saw it and caught it and kept it. We read this one in story time the other day, and we did lots of blowing kisses and lots of hugs. And so it's a great way to talk with kids about ways that you can show love during this time. Send it off to somebody you really love and care about. A next book on the list is called Heroes Wear Masks. This is Elmo's Super Adventure, and this has words by Lillian Bay with pictures by Ernie Quat. And this book, I feel like, is a really good introduction to talking about the coronavirus and why we wear masks. There's a lot of recommendations that are simple for children about how they can wash their hands, procedures they can go through to be safe while they're at school and at home, and as well as ways that they can ease their anxiety, taking those big breaths. There's some talk about how to make children feel better during these uncertain times. And one way is to use a book to talk about it. So this is Heroes Wear Masks. My next three books are all books that are really wonderful to share with people who are interested in learning how they can make a difference, things that they can do to help out with Black Lives Matter, equity of all kinds, women's rights, climate change. There's lots of great picture books to talk about these things with kids, and I have a few I'd love to share with you, and you can share with your friends. This is Anti-Racist Baby. This is by Ibram X. Kendi with illustrations by Ashley Lukashevsky. And this book is available. This is the picture book, and it's available in a board book too for our youngest readers. This is a great introduction to equity and diversity, and it's a great primer for parents. It's definitely written for the parents to start talking about, but I would recommend it for anyone of all ages. This is a really great introduction. It's got beautiful photographs and talks a lot about how we can make equity a reality, how we can support diversity, we can support our BIPOC community members and friends and family. And I would highly recommend this one. It is Anti-Racist Baby. Next on the list, this is Stand Up, Speak Up. This is a book that was inspired by the climate change revolution. It's by Andrew Joyner. And with really simple words, so it would be a great for an emerging reader or somebody who's just learning to read, as well as your picture book fans. It tells the story of a young girl who goes out to march in a climate march, and she's really inspired by what she's done, but then she goes home and she sees on the news that there's fires and there's floods and there's things happening all over the world, and she wants to help more. And this book gives us all some ideas on how to do that. And in the back of the book, there is a page about some real true climate activists who are youth climate activists. And I think that this one would be particularly interesting to people in Eugene because it features Eugenian Kelsey Juliana, who has been part of the Juliana versus the United States, which is a court case to ask the government to protect constitutional rights, to all of our constitutional rights to a clean and safe planet. So thank you for everyone who's out there fighting for that. You can learn a little bit more in this book. And if children are asking questions, they want to know how to get in and help out, there's another one for you. My final recommendation for the evening is called Love is Powerful. This book is by Heather Dean Brewer with illustrations by Lei Wen Pham. Lei Wen Pham won the Caldecott Honor last year for her illustrations of Bear Came Along, and I recommend that one too. But this one is just wonderful. It just came out, and this was inspired by the women's marches that have happened all across the world, and particularly by a little girl named Mari, and I'm going to show you her photo. The author was inspired by Mari. Here she is. Because Mari is a friend of the author's who marched with her at a march in New York City, and she had a sign she made that said "Love is powerful." And so in that march, she got everyone to chant along, and that message came out across the whole march. And I'm going to show you this one illustration that's so beautiful. Let's say it together, y'all. Love is powerful. I love that it's supporting all different kinds of people, women, LGBTQIA+. It's super diverse. So I really love this book a lot, and I think it will be a great gift for anyone to share with anyone, but especially those youngest people you love. Well, this is my last recommendation for the evening. Back to you, Angela.
Hey, Rachel, those were great picks. And don't forget that if you are interested in finding any of these books, that you can actually get this, check them out from the library. Yeah, Rachel.
Have them all, yeah.
All of our picture books, super amazing librarian, purchasing diverse, wonderful titles that you can give as a gift. But if not, check them out from the library. We also have something called What to Read Next. They're great forms. If you love some of the topics that we're talking about today, you want more personalized picks from Rachel, you can hit us up on our What to Read Next form from our website and say, I loved those books, give me more like that. And a fabulous librarian will come and give you personalized recommendations, like our friend Heather. Hi, Heather. How's it going today?
It's going pretty well, Angela. I just had a kitty visitor, and I'm hoping he decides to stay non-visiting he decided now is the time to be on my lap. So we'll see. We might get interrupted by my cat. We'll see. He loves books too.
The pandemic is really, really great for giving us cat visitors and dog visitors. There's nothing better. If there was to be a silver lining, it's how many adorable animals make their visits with us. But I know you didn't come to just talk about the amazing Tom Hanks, right? There's something. All right. Well, Heather's going to talk about books, and maybe we'll see her infamous Tom Hanks.
Yes, we'll see. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to start off, I'm doing some middle grade and teen reads, and I'm going to start off with an author that Rachel already talked about, which is Ibram Kendi. I think he's kind of like, this year was his year. He wrote a ton of books about equality and racism in the United States, and they are kind of for all levels. He wrote a really great one for adults called Anti-Racism. He joined up with my personal favorite author, Jason Reynolds, to write a book called Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. This is a wonderful book for middle grade readers, for younger high school students, for really any kid who has been wondering kind of about the history of racism, how it started. They're maybe wondering about things they didn't learn in school, or just kind of what has been happening over the last year that they've been seeing on their TV with the BML marches. And this book really encapsulates the history of the United States, how racism was kind of founded in our founding fathers, and how it kind of continues throughout. The thing I really enjoy about this is Ibram is a professor. So everything he does is very collegiate level, high. But Jason Reynolds, if you've read any of his stuff, he speaks directly to youth in a way that I don't think anyone has done in years. And so with the two of them together, this book really speaks to middle grade readers. It's done in a way that's so approachable. It really makes them feel like the content was written for them. They're not feel like they're being talked down to. They're not being talked at to. Instead, it's really a conversation. So I highly recommend this one. It's nonfiction. If you can try to get a copy at our library, we keep buying more and they keep going on hold. I was lucky enough to get an advanced reader copy. That's why I've got this one. But it's a great read. I even recommend it for parents to read. This would be a good one to read with your middle schooler. You can read it together and talk about it, but it would make a great book for any kid who's been asking questions and wants to learn more. It's very approachable. So I highly recommend Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram Kendi. Next up, we have something that's a little more fun, but just as interesting, and that is Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. I'm recommending this one, even though it's actually a 2018, I think, release, because the sequel just came out this year. It's part of the Rick Riordan Presents imprint. If you don't know who Rick Riordan is, you must not have a middle school reader at your house, because Rick Riordan is the author of the very popular Percy Jackson series and all of its spinoffs. Basically, they all feature mythology, and Rick Riordan is now using his fame to create this imprint, which is one of the most fabulous imprints out there for middle school readers. It's Rick Riordan Presents. He picks about 4 authors a year to promote and feature their books on his imprint. They're all authors of different backgrounds and cultures, and then they tell stories using mythology from their own cultures, which is fantastic. I've yet to have one of these books be a dud. So if you have a kid who really loves mythology, get them anything from Rick Riordan Presents and they're going to love it. So Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky is about 7th grade Tristan. It starts off a little sad. He was in a bus accident that killed his best friend, Eddie. And he has this feeling that he could have done something to save Eddie. And so it's really eating him up inside. He's been going to therapy, but he just can't let go of this feeling that he could have done something. So his parents decide to ship him off to Alabama and have him be Grandma and Grandpa's problem for a month. And things only get worse, because that is when suddenly a strange creature crawls into Tristan Strong's bedroom while he's sleeping and steals the only thing he has left from Eddie, this notebook. And it steals it and chases off into the woods with it. Tristan runs after this creature and tries to wrestle it back. And in the process, Tristan accidentally punches a hole into the sky of this mythological land called Midpass, and he falls into it with the creature in the notebook and finds himself face to face with Black mythology people we've got the Brer Rabbit, and you've got John Henry, and then it mixes in West African gods like a Nasi, and it becomes this huge kind of battle between these different gods and all these legends, and Tristan is caught in the middle. So it's a really exciting adventure with tons of mythology for kids to dig their teeth into, especially some that they may have never heard of. So I highly recommend Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. Next up, we've got some teen reads. So we're moving from more of our middle school to our high school, and we have one up that I have absolutely loved since last year because it came out in 2019, and this is The Field Guide of the North American Teenager by Ben Philippi. This was his debut novel. It's so good. It won a Morris Award for, which is an award they give to debut novelist. And it is basically about a young kid who is French Canadian and Black. And so he's kind of like doesn't fit in, even in Canada, but he loves hockey and he feels like he's part of that culture. And then his mom springs it on one day that they're moving from Canada, what he loves, to Austin, Texas, where he literally is not going to fit in at all. Nothing about Texas is appealing to him. It's hot. Everyone loves football. He's Canadian. He doesn't care. Everyone assumes he can't speak English because he's French Canadian. And they keep asking him like, oh, your English is so great. Where did you learn to speak it? And he's just frustrated by everything that is Texas. And so the story is told through his point of view. And the thing I really love about it, it's told like he's kind of an observer, witnessing kind of animals in the wilderness. So he has a field guide that he kind of writes, but instead of it being animals, it's like the jocks and the nerds and the band geeks. And he writes down their characteristics and their habits and their identifying characteristics that you can see of them and like all that kind of stuff in this very snarky, funny way. This is a perfect read for anyone who wants to give kind of a teenager who might look at the world a little bit like half glass full and love some humor. This one's a great one, realistic fiction. And he kind of figures out that maybe instead of just observing everyone around him, he actually needs to start trying to be a part of the people instead of just watching them from the sidelines. So that one's a great one. The Field Guide to a North American Teenager. My next one, I don't have a copy of. I tried to get it at the library, but it's so popular, I can't get my hands on it. By Mariko Tamaki, and it's called Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. And it's a graphic novel. It's wonderful. Again, this one's from 2019, but it was so good, I had to talk about it into 2020. But this is the story of a young girl who, unfortunately, her girlfriend is the worst girlfriend, Laura Dean. She's everything that everyone loves, is so charismatic and wonderful. But as you guessed it from the title, Dean keeps and it just is this comic that really talks about kind of first loves and bad relationships and friendships. And there's a lot in this one. I really think it's because it's perspective that not all relationships are wonderful. And sometimes you need to know when to call it quits. And I think for teachers, really important thing for them to read about and to see. And also to see that sometimes when you start, you throw your friends aside, and that can be kind of a bad thing. In there, it's got some romance, but it also at the core is just finding out who your friends are. So I highly recommend that for anyone who is looking for a graphic novel and loves a little like heartbreak and romance. So that one, Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, and leads me into my last book, which is Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. Marie Lu, again, another prolific YA author. She usually writes or kind of sci-fi stuff. This is her first kind of foray into historical fantasy. So this is a great read for fantasy readers or anyone who likes historical fiction. This is a take on Mozart that you will never have seen before. It's Mozart, but more actually about his older sister, who is an extremely talented musician. She can play pretty much everything. She just loves and breathes music. But she's a girl in the 18th century, and pretty much the plans for her are that she's going to get married to a husband and make someone a great wife. And that is it. And she really, really wants to be famous. She wants people to know her. Her greatest fear is being forgotten. And so when she starts to see that her younger brother Mozart is Beethoven is taking over, not Beethoven, sorry, Wolfgang Mozart is taking over kind of the attention because he's so good and everyone's just fawning over this young prodigy. She kind of realizes that she's not going to be the famous one. She's not going to be the one that everyone talks about. And in comes in a mysterious boy from a magical world called Kingdom of Back, who is a fairy who basically makes a promise to her that he can fulfill her wish if he helps her get on the throne. And of course, like all things, wishes are something you should be very careful with, and you should be careful what you wish for, because not all wishes, when they come true, are exactly what you expect them to be. So this is a great blend of some historical fiction. If you're a lover of music, if you've got a teen at home that loves music, this is a great read to pick up. So this one is Marie Lu, The Kingdom of Back So hopefully you've got a few choices to give your middle grade or teen readers, and they will enjoy some of these.
Heather, those are really great. If you don't know, Heather is one of our librarians who helps with our book clubs for both middle grade and high schoolers, as well as us having book clubs for elementary kids and even kids younger than that. So Heather does all of the selecting, and if you know anything about, as you can demonstrate from the books she recommended, they are all really good reads in book club, right, Heather?
They are. We're reading, I think I have it here. This on like Wednesday, we're talking about this one, All's Fair in Middle School, which is great. So another comic book, perfect if you have Raina Talgamaiga readers at your house. They should read this one. So we're doing that one. I'm very excited. I'm just plugging more books. I got more on my shelf, dude.
And that's why we have to actually get away from Heather, because she will keep recommending every single book. We're going to kick it over to my friend Margaret, who is not only going to give us a little bit of kids, but also is going to take us into the dark realm of adult books. Aren't you, Margaret?
That's right. Hi, Angela. I love your hat. So my first book is one of my absolute most favorite picture books. It's called Hello, Lighthouse by Sophie Blackall. This actually won the Caldecott Medal for its illustrations, part of what makes it a wonderful gift, because it is so beautiful. The colors are lovely pastels, and they really evoke a time and a place. It's a little harder. I had to turn the book back into the library, so I made up a board with the pictures on it. So this enchanting picture book, as I said, depicts a time and place that are no longer manned lighthouses where keepers and their families lived their days and nights with a constant purpose to light the way for ships and boats to safely traverse the sea. The watercolor illustrations in this Caldecott Award-winning book bring you right into a cozy setting that hums with life, that feels magical in its simplicity. Through the seasons and the years, you observe the Lighthouse family through all kinds of weather. It's a delightful way to introduce young children to history and a lifestyle that many would never know about otherwise. My next book is an adult book, and it is Elsewhere by Dean Koontz, his latest. If you're already a Dean Koontz fan, this is perfect for the Dean Koontz fan in your life you want to buy a book for Christmas. Also, people who like Stephen King often also like Dean Koontz. Koontz crosses genre in his books. Suspense, mystery, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, magical realism. And this newest is no exception. As well written and compelling as any Koontz book, Elsewhere keeps you up past bedtime because you just can't put it down. This writer has the ability to create characters that are so likable and just so darn good at heart, you want to know them for real and invite them in for a meal. Characters that you remember for a long time after you finish the book. And the bad guys are the baddest you'll ever meet. In Elsewhere, we find Jeffy Coltrane and his 11-year-old daughter Amity caught up in a bizarre, heart-stopping, yet wondrous adventure that takes them from their own lives into parallel worlds, bringing them face to face with the last thing, or rather person, they could have imagined, all while dodging those bad guys. Koontz always has female characters who are strong and clever, independent and capable. No helpless damsels in distress here. Not only does he tell a whopping good story, but he's very literate, so expect to have your vocabulary improved since he loves less commonly used words. And that is Elsewhere by Dean Koontz. My final book, also an adult book, is The Resurrection of Fulgencio Ramirez by Rudy Ruiz. If you've never read magical realism, it is a distinctive tradition. Ruiz's book is written in a florid style with drama and originality. If you're willing to just experiencing it for the characters and language and relax into the switching back and forth between past and present, I think you'll enjoy it. That's the thing about magical realism. It's as much about the experience of it as it is about the story. And what a story this is. Fulgencio Ramirez is a poor kid living in the Mexico-Texas border town of La Frontera. It's almost literally with one foot in Mexico, his grandfather's land, El Dos de Copas, and Texas, where the family now lives. Fulgencio is also living simultaneously in the past and the present. So this book spans the 1950s to the 1980s. He's surrounded by the ghosts of his dead grandfather, Fernando Cisneros, and his high school teacher and football coach, Brother William, as well as the very much alive and stunningly beautiful Gringa he falls in love with, Carolina Mendelsohn, his violent, abusive father, unsympathetic mother, and his mentor, the pharmacist and Carolina's father, Mr. Mendelsohn. Fulgencio is plagued by an ancient family curse from an Aztec ancestor that drives him to violence and jealousy, ruining a promising future with Carolina, while propelling him to achieve his goal of graduating from the University of Texas and becoming a pharmacist. Accompanied by a Greek chorus of Mexican friends and relatives, both alive and dead, Fulgencio spends his middle-aged days in the pharmacy, lamenting his losses and yearning to reunite with the now widowed Carolina. His nights are in his inherited land, El Dos de Copas, with grandfather and brother William, their ghosts, remember, and a dancing wall relief of La Virgen de Guadalupe. Yes, it's an unusual and sometimes confusing story, but it's also rich with love, romance, friendship, and longing, and above all, magic. And that's The Resurrection of Fulgencio Ramirez. And that's it. That's what I've got, Angela.
Margaret, those were super amazing and fabulous. I was like, ooh, I like magic. And I like that you give us a little bit of spook in our holiday season. And don't forget, if you want more of Margaret's personalized reads, fill out a what to read next form and say, Margaret, give me more of those great reads. And Margaret will surprise and delight and give you everything that you want. And that's our what to read next form found on the Eugene Public Library and in our comments page. Well, it seems like we've kind of left childhood behind us, which is unfortunate as we deep dive into more adult titles. Ashton, I hear you're going to take us to many different places with strong, fierce women. Is that right?
That is very correct. So hello, everyone. I'm here to give you some great adult book gift recommendations for adults that feature strong female leads. A great thing to note is that all of these titles are in our collection, so you can gift them or you can read them yourself. So the first novel that I am going to recommend to you guys is Luster by Raven Lilani. This is her debut novel, and she gives one of the best portrayals I've ever read of what it's like to be a listless, confused, misguided 20-something. And I would know because I am a listless, confused, misguided 20-something. We follow Edie, who is the central character, as she stumbles through her early 20s and she loses her publishing job. She begins a torrid relationship with an older married man named Eric. She's evicted from her apartment, and then she moves in with Eric, his wife Rebecca, and their adopted Black daughter Akila, all while trying to find her sense of self as a young Black woman. So the thread of loneliness throughout this book, whether it's through Edie's inability to create deep emotional bonds outside the romantic relationships she engages in, or with Akila's inability to weave herself into her adopted white parents' suburban existence, or even Rebecca, the wife, and her isolating coming to terms with her husband having an open relationship with someone 2 decades younger than him. Loneliness is a feeling that all of the central women characters really struggle against. I would super recommend this book to almost any adult demographic of reader who is interested in reading really dry, witty prose with sympathetic and flawed female characters who are just trying to figure out what in the world they're doing with their messy lives. So my second recommendation is Bestiary by Km Chang. So Chang is a decorated poet, and I believe this is her first novel. And woo boy, her poetry background really comes through her writing style. This gift recommendation really relies on the gift receiver being interested in poetic prose styles, and those kinds of books that are like just really immersive but challenging. Oh, my light came off. There we go. So the main character, her name is Daughter, or they call her Daughter, is a third-generation Taiwanese American who one day grows a tiger tail. Along with Ben, a girl from school who she falls in love with, Daughter tries to figure out why she's embodying the fable of Huju Po, a tiger spirit that takes hold of female bodies and eats children's toes. Her journey takes her deep into her family's history, where it turns out the other matriarchs in her lineage also embody fables and animal spirits. While reading this book, I really struggled at first with trying to decipher what was magical realism and what was metaphor, what was beautifully written metaphor. And then eventually I realized that it was both and neither at the same time. It feels like the author is almost creating her own new language. And really the best way to enjoy this book is just to sit back, let her take you on a very visceral, very messy, very weird, and very wonderful ride through the lives of these matriarchs. All right. The final book I have today is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily Danforth. I was super excited about this book. She also wrote The Miseducation of Cameron Post, which is a YA book. Very decorated, very important book. But this is actually her first foray into adult fiction. So this book is a story within a story within a story, which makes sense because it is over 600 pages. So it makes sense that it's filled with many stories. It follows first two young lesbian lovers at a boarding school who meet an unfortunately very tragic end in 1902 Rhode Island. And their deaths are mysteriously linked to a book that they both loved to read together. Then it follows a present-day young prodigy writer that publishes a nonfiction book based on their deaths, which then, third story, becomes a movie that said writer becomes an unwitting part of, along with the two lead actresses that play the tragic lesbian lovers of past. I don't have a ton of details I can reveal plot-wise because as soon as you open this book, it unfolds with detail upon spoilerific detail. But if you can think of a reader in your life who has a penchant for gothic horror, queer love stories, morbid humor, a fun back and forth between a period piece and a modern day setting, and a fun third-person narrative voice that I couldn't help but imagine was Emma Thompson reading this book to me, then please run to the store and get this book as soon as possible. So I would highly recommend all of these awesome novels as gifts, but also as books that you can read on your own. All right, Angela, passing it back over to you.
Oh, man. I think that these adult books are super awesome and very intense. Oh, my gosh. What great book recommendations to give that person where you're like, what will I read? Wow. Man, if only we had even more adult recommendations to give. Oh, we do.
I'm here.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Angela.
Hi, Ashton. Hi, Andy. I hear you're going to give us even more great reads. And if you know Andy, you see him on our previous EPL reads, I have a sneaking suspicion that Andy might be giving us a Stephen King book or two.
Just one, but yes, you're right. Thank you for that, Angela. I have 6 adult books. I apologize. I couldn't control myself, so I will try to be fairly brief with them. So I wanted to start with what I think it's a classic, I would say, by Stephen King, and I think it's a great gift, and that is, it's not scary, I promise, On Writing by Stephen King. Actually, let's be real. If you're thinking about getting into writing, it probably is scary. So this is Stephen King's, again, I would say classic of the how-to genre. It's about half of a memoir by him where he kind of talks about his own journey into writing novels. And then from there, he goes into about half the book is sort of a practical guide as to how to get started in writing fiction. And I just don't hear this book talked about all that much these days. And I just thought if you have a person in your life, whether they're a teen or even younger, or perhaps a little bit older, anyone who wants to maybe start writing their own stories, I would highly recommend this book. This is a really fancy hardcover Scribner Classics edition. So that is Stephen King's On Writing. I know I'm a bit of a curveball because I didn't do a scary Stephen King story, but honestly, I think of all of his books, this one is the best one to give as a gift. Even if someone's not interested in writing their own stories, if they just want to know more about one of America's finest storytellers and modern day Charles Dickens, sorry, I'm starting to ramble about how great Stephen King is, go ahead and get them On Writing. So that's my first book, On Writing by Stephen King. My next one, this is actually off-brand for me, but it's the only novel I'm going to be recommending today, and that is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This just came out in September. It just actually won the Goodreads Award for Best Fiction. It's an award that's just voted on by Goodreads users, so it should give you some idea of how well loved it is by readers. Is it the best book that came out in 2020? No, probably not. Is it the absolute most delightful book that came out in 2020? Yes, it is. Absolutely. So the basic plot here is impossible to resist. A woman named Nora, she's 35 years old, which hits pretty close to home for me. And she is feeling she's unfortunately very depressed. And I'll say right off the bat, this book does open with a suicide attempt. And I do want to say that the author, Matt Haig, he's published nonfiction in the past about his own mental health struggles. It's something he's gone through himself. It's not something he takes lightly, and it's not a simple, mental health for plot device thing. It's a subject he cares very deeply about. So let me just throw that out there because I know it's kind of tough to start with that. But anyway, Nora decides to end her own life, but she does not die. And instead, she ends up in a metaphysical library called the Midnight Library. And there, a helpful librarian, obviously, explains to her that she can search the endless shelves and select any book, and that book shows her a life that she could have lived had she done things differently. And so she actually is transported to this life when she selects a book and gets to feel it out and live it for a while, basically until she feels any sort of dissatisfaction, and then she is transported back to the library to try again. And so she goes on this journey where she essentially, it's like episodic, where she, tries out these different lives. She finds herself married and running a pub in the English countryside. In one of them, she is a glaciologist. In another, she is an Olympic swimmer. It goes on, and it's building towards some lessons learned, and perhaps maybe even a little predictable towards the end. But this book is so beautifully written. It is earnest. It is life affirming. It is a grand adventure. It is so, like I said before, delightful. I'm going to use it again, and I'm not sorry. Delightful. Anyone in your life who reads fiction and is looking for an uplifting book with metaphysics and quantum physics and philosophy and chess and adventure and just about everything else, get them this book. It's wonderful. That's The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Oh boy, I've already gone 5 minutes. So I'll try to be fast. Sorry, I have to do a little disclaimer here. This next book does have a bit of profanity in the title. So if you would like to skip over that part of this public program, just go ahead like 2 minutes. Fair warning, and here it comes. So my next choice is Shit Actually by Lindy West. And it is a definitive 100% objective guide to modern cinema. So I think... Oh, there goes my timer. Sorry. I guess I'm just going to ignore it. So Lindy West, I'm sure she's known to some to some readers for her books Shrill and The Witches Are Coming, and there's also a TV series based on her book Shrill. And in this book here, she essentially she goes through classic cinema of like the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And she writes these really funny essays that sort of deconstruct them and are a little bit critical, but mostly just really good humor and really funny. And she wanted to name this book The Fugitive is the Only Good Movie. And I just wanted to read a quick passage to give you some idea from chapter 1, which is called The Fugitive is the Only Good Movie. So this is Lindy West. Hopefully most people are familiar with the general plot. So here we go. Also, on wife Helen's 911 call, she's like, Richard, he's trying to kill me. And the cops are like, your name is Richard. Do you think she meant you? Which, to be fair, and I know this is tacky because she's a corpse, but Helen could not have done a worse job here. Like, watch one Dateline, Helen. You have to say a large, upsetting Greek man with a perm. A large, upsetting Greek man with a perm. He's trying to kill me, not Richard, who is nice. So that's just a really enjoyable book of essays about movies that someone in your life probably loves. Great for younger folks, teens, especially because it doesn't really go into like super classic cinema, or really just anyone in your life who enjoys movies, essays, and humor. That is Shit Actually by Lindy West. Okay, my next one is going to be for parents in your life, especially maybe new parents or future parents. And that is the new one by Mike Birbiglia with poems by J. Hope Stein, who is Mike's wife. And that's the new one, Painfully True Stories from a Reluctant Dad. It's based on Mike Birbiglia's long form kind of one-man show stand-up comedy. That's all about essentially him and his wife having their first child. And they had agreed when they got married that they did not want children. That changed. And without getting too much into it, because I think it's best experienced, fresh. His journey that he details is so funny and so honest and sometimes painful. And J. Hope Stein is her poetry is vivid and beautiful, and it's such an interesting combination. You kind of experienced this journey with these two together, and I think it's a great gift for parents in general. Again, whether they're have a baby or toddlers, or maybe even kids that are getting a little bit older now. It's such a it's so honest. It's something so cathartic and beautiful about how it just puts out there that like parenthood sometimes is really hard and sometimes not fun. And sometimes it's also wonderful. And it's just, I think instead of one of those parenting books that kind of makes it seem like you're doing everything wrong, or, maybe makes it seem so daunting that you have to like be prepared for this next stage of life, whatever the case may be, those are all great, but not really what I would recommend. This is such a great thing to give parents because you just kind of feel seen by this comedian, Mike Birbiglia, and check out all of his shows too, because he is fantastic. Okay, my next one is for true crime fans, and it's called We Keep the Dead Close. By Becky Cooper. It's a murder at Harvard and a half century of silence. This is probably the best true crime book I've read in years. Becky Cooper, in about 2009, was a Harvard student who heard a sort of kind of almost like a legend about this student who was murdered in her apartment about 50 years ago. And it's almost like a myth, except that she finds out the case was very real, and she starts investigating, and she ends up going on a 10-year personal and professional odyssey to try to solve this case. And the places she goes, she dives deep into academia, into the personal lives of people who knew the victim, Jane Britton, into Jane's life. It's all too short but interesting life. It's this like very kaleidoscopic, very humanist work of true crime and I think that's always the best true crime, the one that like doesn't really sensationalize the gory details, but spends a lot more time on, what the crime means and like how it affected people, and really focusing on the fact that a life was cut short. And it's also kind of a memoir too. If anyone's familiar with I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, or the HBO documentary, similar there, where it's kind of a personal story meshed together with a true crime account. And that's We Keep the Dead Close by Becky Cooper. Can't recommend it enough. My last one. This is my favorite one to recommend. So we have all been in quarantine, this year. We've been watching a lot of TV. Probably a lot of people have been rewatching their favorite shows, which is why I recommend The Office, the untold story of the greatest sitcom of the 2000s by Andy Green. So this is an oral history of how the US version of The Office came to be. And because I've gone way too long, I'm just going to say, if you know someone who likes The Office, definitely get them this book. It's so fun to read. It's an oral history, so it jumps around to all these different perspectives. You can go season by season. You can watch, season 1 and then read about season 1. You can read the whole thing all the way through. Kind of experience however you'd like. And it tells you so much about just the nuts and bolts of how a TV show comes into existence in the first place. You learn behind the scenes information that is so fascinating. It's funny. It will definitely make you appreciate the show, if it's even possible to appreciate it more than you already do. It will. So that's The Office by Andy Green. It's a wonderful gift for anyone in your life who loves The Office. And I hear that teenagers like The Office, which just warms my heart because
I think that's a rumor, Andy. That's a teens don't know.
There's science and data behind it.
There is science and data behind it. Yes.
I'm sorry I went so long. I couldn't help myself.
Andy, we cannot try to contain you.
I know.
We have learned this lesson. You read many a book. You are very good. If you are interested in more of Andy's spectacular reads, he is one of the minds, as many of the staff are, behind our Facebook Readers Advisory. If you are a part of that today, it's not too late to get in on it. Go to our Facebook page, which you may already be at, and say, what do you have to read? And Andy is behind the other computer saying, The Office. Exactly. Well, thanks for that one, Andy. I still dispute that teenagers watch The Office, but I'm old.
It's true. It's on the internet, so it's true.
It's correct. As Andy has said, the internet does have all of the things that we know and love. So you would think that we have gotten you out of here. We've given you so many books, but not yet. New for this year, we are going to give you something magical and delightful. We have an expert. Music. Hello, Martha. How's it going?
Hello, Angela. Hello, viewers.
Martha, I am so excited. I can't wait to get myself off of this so I can hear about everything that you have to offer. Just looking behind you is a sheer delight for me watching. So here is Martha, and I'll let you guess what she might be talking about.
Well, I am here tonight to make some music recommendations for you folks out there. I hear we're in a golden age of vinyl. I don't know. Look behind me. I say we've always been in a golden age of vinyl. And this year, maybe you or someone you know is getting a record player and either looking to start a record collection, or if you already have a record player, add some spicy new titles to your existing collection. Either way, a Eugene Public Library card is a key to access music as it is to books. Record buying and collecting can be an expensive pastime that for many turns into an obsession. But with your library card, you can listen to music before you buy it. So let's start things off tonight with a bang. I'm going to start things off with RTJ4. The fourth studio album by Run the Jewels. For anyone who doesn't know, Run the Jewels is a rap duo consisting of Killer Mike, an Atlanta-based rapper, and rapper-producer LP. This fourth studio album features appearances by Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age, Zach De La Rocha of Rage Against the Machine, Mavis Staples, Gangsta Boo, Pharrell Williams. And it has aptly been described by my friend Ian as the soundtrack for 2020. This album is not for the faint of heart. Okay, it is apocalyptic. It is eerie. It is menacing. The lyrics are politically charged and challenging. It was released by BMG on June 3rd, just at the height of the BLM marches and rallies. So there's a lot in this that is really worth listening to. The message is deep, and as is the production. It is deep and complex. There's a lot going on here. And some of my favorite tracks are first, The Ground Below, which samples a song called Ether by a great band called the Gang of Four. That's a tremendous track. Pulling the Pin, featuring vocals by Mavis Staples, is fantastic and haunting and painful. A Few Words for the Firing Squad features a saxophone solo that sounds like it was lifted from songs from The Big Chair, but it wasn't. And the track Walking in the Snow, it sounds like White Walkers approaching your front door. It is terrifying. I think this album is very important, and I think it would make a great gift for the political activist in your life, lovers of rap, metal, punk, horror soundtracks, and just aggressive music in general will appreciate this. All right, my next recommendation is a gorgeous album. It's the 5th studio album by Michael Hadrius, also known as Perfume Genius. And I have to open this gatefold cover up because it's gorgeous. So there's the front cover. Here is, oh, and how do I do this? Here's the inside, draped over a motorcycle. This album came out on May 15th of this year on the Matador label. It clocks in at 10 minutes under an hour. And you know, when I first listened to this, just the first lyrics grabbed me in the same way that one of my all-time favorite albums, Spirit of Eden by Talk Talk, grabbed me. And on the Spirit of Eden Talk Talk album, the first words are, "Oh yeah, the world's turned upside down." The first lyrics on Perfume Genius, Set My Heart on Fire Immediately, are as follows. "Half of my whole life is gone. Let it drift and wash away. It was just a dream I had. It was just a dream." This album is bedroom pop at its finest. It's warm, it's intimate, it's spacious and dreamy, druggy at times. The richly textured production at times reaches wall of sound status. Some of my favorite tracks, Leave is fantastic, but the song Jason just blows my mind. Michael Hadrius reaches just a spine-tingling falsetto on that track, and the song is punctuated by just very charming harpsichord and a lovely bass line. Time really slows down in that track, and it takes you right there into the bedroom with him. So Perfume Genius explores themes of homosexuality, loss, and memories of the past. But the album never feels confessional. It feels conversational. And when I listen to it, I feel like I am sitting in my best friend's bedroom sharing secrets. Perfume Genius really makes you feel like following him into the caverns of his soul. It's lovely from start to finish. I recommend this if you like Roy Orbison, oddly, and even Elvis. He does croon at times and again reaches that high falsetto. But also if you're a fan of Scott Walker or, as I mentioned earlier, Talk Talk, this album is for you. All right, next on the list, I have a couple of ambient experimental recommendations. I'm not going to talk about them too much because time is running out. They are experimental, ambient, but are not just wallpaper. These are albums that demand your attention. The first is titled Karma and Desire. It is by British electronic musician Darren Cunningham, who goes by the pseudonym Actress. Where does the dance club end and the concert hall begin? I don't know. This music is experimental, as I said, and it's very soothing. It's great music for yoga. Next up, Sufian Stevens and Lowell Brams, who is Sufian's stepdad, who was immortalized on Sufian's, I think, 2015 album, Carrie and Lowell. This is a delightful album, 21 tracks. Each one is probably less than 2 minutes long. And as I said, it's meditative. It's great music for yoga. It is music for slow movement and deep breathing. And I'm going to end on two very lovely and lighthearted recommendations. The first is Krungbin's Mordecai, on the Dead Oceans label. This album was released right in the middle of the year, and Krungbin is a nearly impossible to pronounce name. It looks like Kurangbin, but it's Krungbin, and apparently it's a Thai word. They are a Texas-based trio that makes just beautiful, life-affirming, uplifting music. And their previous releases were largely instrumental. This one, there are scads of vocals, and I think that every song is wonderful. They explore global music rhythms. There are a couple of songs in different languages, one in French, one in Spanish. I recommend it if you like bands like Kikagaku Moyo, Bright Black Morning Light, Menahan Street Band. The last one, and I'm showing you this on my phone because I have been listening to it on Hoopla for the last few days, and it's wonderful. It's pure, pleasurable pop music, and it is Future Nostalgia by Dua Lipa. This is music that makes me want to dance. It is reminiscent of 80s pop, dance music, and 90s era club music. It's great. And, you know, I'm a sucker for her British accent. It hits me in the same way that Lily Allen's does. It's very fun. Highlight of this album, there are great songs all around. Physical is fantastic. Levitating is, it's just that. It is levitating. I recommend this if you like Selena Gomez, Camila Cabello, Alicia Cara, and if you just like to dance and want to have fun. So that is it. Angela, back to you.
Martha, can we talk about how I could listen to you talk about music forever? You are you know more about music than like your pinky finger, the tip of it is how much I know about music. So you are a delight and a pleasure. A secret tip, don't tell anybody, just between us on the stream. We are planning a music program with Martha up January, February, March. We can't tell the secrets. We're planning an amazing program because Martha is one of the most knowledgeable people here at the library around music. She's also a great human being, I guess. She is an inspiration for us music-wise, and I am jealous of every album. And I am hoping I get a record player for Christmas. So
I hope you do too.
I know. I feel like record players are hip and awesome, and I should have one, right?
You should, absolutely.
Good. Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring back all of our panelists. That's the warning for them that they're backstage and they're all going to look up and be like, not on their phones, or hopefully no one ran to the restroom. Oh, they're all here. How great. We had some delightful questions in the comment section, which we answered for some of you. But I think from our panelists to you, we hope if you don't give these as gifts and you take them for yourself, that is A-okay this season. And you can find anything, again, give us a shout out at the library. Fill out a What to Read Next form. Ask us questions on Facebook. We are here for you. And we want to fill your heart with music and movies and books. So from us here at Eugene Public Library, have a great, great holiday season. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.